Welcome to the demonstration of our ResourceSync change notification system. My name is Martin Klein, and together with Harihar Shankar and Herbert van der Zampel from the prototyping team of the LANL Research Library, we have created this prototype in the course of March 2014. The movie that you're currently watching, however, was recorded on April 6th, 2014. Our ResourceSync change notifications prototype is based on PubSub as a push protocol. That implies that there are three main components to the system. We have our publisher, we have a hub, and we have one or more subscribers. Where the publisher, or in ResourceSync terms, the source, monitors its resources, and once it recognizes that one of its resources has changed, the source generates a change notification which it directly sends to the hub. The hub knows of all its registered subscribers, or in ResourceSync terms, destinations, and directly relays those change notifications to each and every single one of the subscribed destinations. The destination then, on the other hand, can act accordingly to the change notification to make sure that it is in sync with the changing resources at the source. You will recognize three more tabs that I have open here. And the second tab displays a directory listing of our publisher, of our source. And as of right now, there's only one resource residing at the source, which is called about-en.html. And if you click on that, we'll see it is a text in English about ResourceSync. And it starts with a phrase that the web is highly dynamic. We further see two buttons. One says Create Resources and the other one Delete Resources. I will press those two buttons later on in the demonstration. The Create Resource button will trigger a process that, as the label implies, will create resources at the source's end, and the Delete Resources will delete those resources. The next tab over is what I'd like to call our listener. So this HTML page is split in three columns. On the far left we have a column that's titled Source. There we will see messages generated at the source upon the recognition that resources have changed at the source's end. The center column will display all messages that the hub will receive, and last but not least, on the right we'll see messages that are relayed from the hub to the destination. Okay, and our last tab here on the right is a directory listing of our subscriber, or in ResourceSync terms, our destination. And we can see that the destination also only holds one resource about-en.html, and just by eyeballing it, it looks exactly the same. So as of right now, the destination is in sync with the source. Okay, so I will trigger the process of creating new resources at the source, and after clicking this button I will immediately go to the listener tab here in order to observe the messages that come through the system. I click on it and I go to the listener, and we already see a message coming in at the source, or being generated at the source. Every couple of seconds there's a message being generated, and each of those messages is being sent directly to the trusted hub, which then can relay those messages to the destination on the right. Okay, great. So let's see. The source tells us that a resource that is identified with the name about-de has been created. Resource created. The source tells us the byte size of that resource, and it has also computed an MD5 hash based on the content of that resource. Furthermore, there's another resource about-fr, which also has been created, and it has a different hash value based on its content. So those are the messages generated at the source. Let's look at the hub and let's try to find our resource that we've seen before, about-de.html. And the hub here now tells us that it has received a change notification about this resource and it's relaying it to one subscriber. Okay, so let's look at the payload, what exactly the hub has received from the source, and we'll see it's our change notification. It has an opening URL set element, it has a URL block for this resource that has changed, and it has a log element which holds the URI identifying the resource, about-de.html. It of course has a last mod, and it has an MD element, an RSMD element with the attribute change, and the value is created. So that means that the resource identified by the URI of the log element has been created. The content base hash is appended here as well, just like the length of the resource and its MIME type. Okay, let's look as another example at the payload of the about-fr resource, and we see it's exactly the same, but of course the URI is a different one, and here also the resource was created and has a different MD5 hash. Okay, so this is what the hub receives from the source and what it relays to the destination. So let's now look at the destination, what it receives. We'll look at our resource that we have been observing here, the about-de, and the source now looks at the destination rather, now looks at the change notification and can interpret it as such that the resource was created. So the next step for the destination then is to actually go fetch the changed resource from the source. It tells us that it does that, and as a next step the destination computes its own content-based MD5 hash of that fetched resource, and it can compare that MD5 hash with the hash generated at the source, and we'll see, okay, this is a match, so the fetched resource is validated. The same would hold true for the about-fr resource. There also the destination tells us it is created, it will be obtained, and the hash is such. Okay, so these are the messages going through the system. Now let's look at the source, and we'll see the directory listing has been updated, and there's a bunch of new files that have been created. For example, we see our about-de resource, and if you look at that, if you speak German, you'll recognize this is basically the same text, just in German. The web is still dynamic. And if you look at the other resource that we have been following, about-fr.html, that is the same text, just in French. So we have basically a little translation service from our base resource, the about-en.html resource, implemented, and each of those resources contains the same text in a different language. So let's look at our destination, whether the destination is in sync already. We of course need to do a reload here on our directory listing, and we see indeed it has successfully obtained all the new resources from the source. So we see our German language text again, and our French text. So this is success. Right now the source with its changed resources and has a destination that is synchronized with the changing resources at the source. Okay, I will now press the second button here, the delete resource button. This button will trigger another process on the source that deletes all the newly created resources. After pressing that button, I will go straight back to our listener in order to observe the messages going through the system upon this triggering this event. So I press the button, go to the listener page updates, and we'll see already all messages have gone through already. That was fast. So we see our about-de resource, and the source tells us that this resource has been deleted. Same with the French document, or the French resource has also been deleted, just like any other resource that has been created previously. So again, looking at the hub, we'll see our resource here, and again this change notification has been posted, has been relayed to one subscriber, to one destination. And let's look again at the payload that the hub has received from the source. We'll see it's exactly the same format, of course. The log element holds our URI, about-de.html, the last mod of the change event, and now we'll see that the value of the change attribute in the RSMD element is not created anymore. Obviously, it is deleted. And since this resource was deleted, there's no point in including a content-based hash anymore, or the byte length of that resource. Just a message that it was deleted is perfectly sufficient. And let's look at the payload of the notification about the French document. There also we say about-fr.html, and the value of the change attribute equals deleted. Alright, so let's see what the destination did with those change notifications. Let's recognize here about-de.html, our resource. The destination looks at the change notification and is able to interpret it as such that the resource was deleted. So all the destination now needs to do in order to remain synchronized with the changing resources of the source is to delete the very same resource at its own end, and that's what it does. And it does the same thing with the French document right here and all other documents. Alright, let's go back to the source, even though we've seen it before, just for confirmation. The directory listing has been updated. All the newly created resources are deleted at the source. And let's compare that with the state of the destination. We, of course, need to do a reload again. And we'll see here as well the resources that have been obtained previously are now deleted as well. So now again, the destination is in sync with the source and it's changing resources, which is ultimately the desirable state. So these two change events display the ResourceSync change notifications system, and with that we conclude our little demo of our ResourceSync change notifications prototype.